Hey guys, welcome back to 90 Feet From Home. Today we're going to have the first ever episode of 10-Minute Histories, which is a different segment where I'm going to dive into brief overviews of every major league team. And I'm going to do these later on for different famous events, different major players. So if I gloss over a player here, like Hank Aaron, and only briefly mention him, it's because I'm going to do an entire feature on him later on. There are some major players that really do deserve their own shout outs, and it's really hard to fit an entire team's history into 10 minutes. So I don't want to dwell too heavily on any individual players. Also, I'm starting with the Atlanta Braves because I'm doing everything alphabetically here. Out of fairness, I don't want any one team to feel featured more heavily than any other, so we're going to go through every single one of the teams alphabetically in terms of which city they play in. So the Atlanta Braves started in 1871 in Boston as the Boston Red Stockings. And I know, what are you saying, Ashley? The Boston Red Stockings became the Atlanta Braves and not the Boston Red Sox? Yes, that is correct. I'll actually get into that briefly in a minute, but yeah, the Boston Red Stockings actually did become the Atlanta Braves. So a lot of this was a factor because there was also a team called the Cincinnati Red Stockings at the same time, and as a result, the Boston Red Stockings in the National Association of Professional Baseball Players, not to be confused with the National League. I'm going to link my video down below explaining the difference between the National League and the American League. In the National Association, there were the Cincinnati Red Stockings and the Boston Red Stockings. So sometimes the Boston Red Stockings actually went by the name the Boston Red Caps or the Boston Bean Eaters, just so that they could avoid confusion with the Cincinnati Club. Now, Cincinnati, as you may know, is now the Reds. The Braves are actually the oldest continuously playing team in all of American sports. The team was founded by Harry and George Wright and Ivers Whitney Adams. In the early years, the team actually included Albert Spalding, who went on to found Spalding Sporting Goods. While the National Association did suffer a little with player movement after the establishment of the National League in 1876, it wasn't actually until the establishment of the American League in 1901 that teams really started suffering an outpouring of players, because the American League was offering considerably better contracts than were being offered by the National Association. The Red Caps, or the Bean Eaters, actually lost a ton of players to the American League, to the new Boston American League team. It's actually how the new AL Boston team came to be referred to as the Red Sox, because the National Association team didn't want to continue having red in their title because there was a problem with the dye, the uniforms causing issues, so they wanted to remove any referral to the red as there was no longer red in their uniforms. So the Red Sox took advantage of this, claiming the name, and have been known as the Red Sox in Boston ever since. The Bean Eaters actually tried to use a couple of different names, hoping that it would curb any of the bad luck that they'd been having since the establishment of the American League. For a while, they were known as the Doves, and then when that did nothing for their luck, they were referred to as the Rustlers. It wasn't until 1912, actually, that they settled on the Braves as their name, and that was because the owner, James Gaffney, who was a member of the Tammany Hall political organization, wanted to borrow the Tammany Hall logo, which was a Indian chief. The Braves' name seemed to stick in terms of the luck the team had. In the 1914 season, they actually had one of the most remarkable comeback seasons in all of baseball history. In the latter half of the season, after having pretty unspectacular start to begin the year, from July onward, they went 41-12 for that back half of the year. They ended up actually going on to sweep the World Series against the Philadelphia A's. Talk about a change in luck. In 1935, the team decided to reach out to the Yankees in hope of acquiring Babe Ruth, the former Red Sox and Yankees great, who was still an active player at this time. He was promised the position of player vice president, and since Ruth was really motivated to get into a managerial position, he decided that it was a really good way for him to kind of make that move. Now, the 1935 season ended up being an absolute disaster for both the Braves and for Babe Ruth, in that by the time June rolled around, Ruth was done. Ultimately, it turned out to be Babe Ruth's final season in baseball. It was pretty clear from the get-go that he didn't have much left in him except the ability to hit, and by June 1st, he decided to announce his retirement from the game. Unfortunately, none of the managerial promise really worked out for him either. 1935 ended up being the worst year in Atlanta Braves history and one of the worst years in baseball history overall. The team went 38-115, arguably one of the worst seasons in modern sports history. That same season, again hoping that a name change might adjust their luck, the team became the Boston Bees. This change only lasted for 5 years when another change in management had the team's name reverted back to the Boston Braves. Fast forwarding, in 1953, ownership decided decided to move the team from Boston, where there was a crowded baseball market, to Milwaukee, where there was no market at all, making it one of the first expansion teams in baseball history. The move was so successful and the team so well received in Milwaukee that other teams actually took note of this and decided to try their luck outside of their current hometowns. Teams that moved over the next 5 years would be the Philadelphia A's, the St. Louis Browns, the Brooklyn Dodgers, and the New York Giants. In the Braves' first season in Milwaukee, they experienced tremendous success, not only with fan response and popularity, but also in terms of wins. They actually went 92-62 that year. Their stay in Milwaukee was actually short-lived, actually less than 15 years. And by 1963, the organization was then moved to Atlanta. The stay in Milwaukee was actually short enough that there is one player to have played in all 3 cities for the Braves, and that's Eddie Matthews. He joined the Braves in their last season in Boston, was with the team the entire duration of their stay in Milwaukee, and played for that first year they were in Atlanta as well. In 1976, Ted Turner bought the team, hoping to be able to keep them in Atlanta. Now, Ted Turner was a really hands-on owner, so much so that he named himself manager, but the problem with this is that baseball has a rule in that managers cannot have a financial stake in their team, so his managerial tenure lasted a single game. From about 1991 to 2005, the Braves experienced an incredible run of success. During that time, they had 3 pitchers, Greg Maddux, John Smoltz, and Tom Glavine, who combined to win 6 Cy Young Awards between them. The team has won 1 World Series in each of the cities it played in, one in 1914 in Boston, and that was that sweep against the Philadelphia A's. The second was in 1957 in Milwaukee, and that was a 4-3 victory against the New York Yankees. And the third and most recent win was in 1995 while they were playing in Atlanta, and that was a 4-2 series victory against the Cleveland Indians. Their biggest divisional rivals would be considered the New York Mets and the Philadelphia Phillies, if you believe in those kinds of rivalries. The Braves have 10 retired numbers and an 11th with the number 42, which is for Jackie Robinson, which is retired across all MLB teams. This is also a really good breakdown of the most famous and noted players that have played for the Braves, so we're just going to kind of combine this all into one thing. The number 3 was retired for Dale Murphy. The number 6 was retired for Bobby Cox. The number 10 was retired for Chipper Jones. That was just recently. Number 21 was retired for Warren Spahn. Number 29 was retired for John Smoltz. Number 31 was retired for Greg Maddux. Number 35 was retired for Phil Niekro. Number 41 was retired for Eddie Matthews. Number 44 was retired for Hank Aaron. And number 47 was retired for Tom Glavine. The Braves minor league franchises are the AAA Gwinnett Stripers, the AA Mississippi Braves, and the High A Florida Fire Frogs. From 1997 to 2016, they played at Turner Field in Atlanta, and currently from 2017 onward, they have played at SunTrust Park. Their mascot since 2018 is Blooper, and Blooper is one of those kind of rando mascots that really isn't anything. He's just kind of a weird, fuzzy Muppet looking thing. The Braves have kind of a questionable history with mascots, and they've had a lot of trouble settling on one since. The Braves' first mascot, at least in Atlanta, was Chief Naka Houma, and that was a kind of a jokey name to reference Naka Homer, as in a home run. And Naka Houma lived at the stadium in a teepee, and whenever the Braves would hit a home run, he would come out and do a dance. He was used between the 1950s all the way up until 1986, and you can kind of see why they would have to retire something that was that culturally insensitive. He was replaced with Blooper and Rally. Blooper was a giant baseball-headed mascot, kind of like Mr. Met for the Mets, and he only lasted until 1988, whereas Rally had like a blue mohawk and was also kind of a Muppet-looking character, and he lasted all the way through until 2004. Then between that period and 2018, the Braves technically didn't have a mascot until 2018 when they unveiled Blooper. Another thing the Braves are really well known for that is also often considered problematic but is still part of the game is the tomahawk chop, where they will kind of chop their arms up and down, and this happens throughout the game.
This is what I was looking forward to.
And there's kind of like a rally cry around it, and it's a little bit alarming when you hear it for the first time in person. That is something that they do continue to do as of this filming. The team's current owner is Liberty Media Corporation. The current general manager for the team is Alex Anthopoulos, and the current manager for the team is Brian Snitker. Brian Snitker. And so that, friends, in 10 minutes or less, is the brief history of the Atlanta Braves. Look forward to one of these for every single one of the major league teams, as well as teams like the Montreal Expos, who no longer exist, and for major players and events that happen throughout baseball history, like the 1994 strike, or like I mentioned, Hank Aaron, Babe Ruth. Those kinds of guys are going to get their own features. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. If you liked my new background, just for these episodes, tell me what you think below. It's my baseball bookshelf, complete with video game Funko Pops and Eddie Rosario bobblehead. There's more up there, but I digress. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, ring the bell if you want to be notified every time a new episode becomes available every Tuesday and Thursday. And as always, your standard reminder that you can follow me on social media. I'm at 90 Feet From Home everywhere, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Leave a comment below if you have a player that you'd like to see a 10-minute history on or a specific event, and I will add it to my recording queue. If you just want to say hey or have any comments about this episode, feel free to leave those in a comment below as well. And that's a wrap on our first ever 10-minute history. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye!